Ladies and gents, how you doing? Obviously, the main thrust of today's video is going to be howling laughing at Trumpy Bear excoriating Keir Starmer and, well, all the knobheads in Europe, basically. However, I quickly want to talk about this before I jump into it. Have you seen this result from Codner, Langley, Mill and Aldercar? Reform took it off Labour easily, it wasn't even close. 45.6% of the vote compared to Labour's 19. But look who came second and third. Advance UK hurtling up the charts to 12.3%, and the Conservatives took 10. Which means, because let's have it said, the Conservatives, like the title, throws people off. People who vote Conservative are right-wing. They expected them to be right-wing. Just because they happen to be namby-pamby, limp-wristed, lefty do-gooders doesn't mean the people voting Conservative are left-wing. So 10% of them voted for what they thought was a right-wing option, 12.3% voted for an even more right-wing option, and 45.6% of them voted for what is supposed to be a right-wing option, but maybe a little bit limp-wristed itself, we'll see. Point is, what used to be a Labour seat is now 70% right-wing, which I've said for a very long time. If you talk to some brain-dead Geordie who's been voting Labour for 40 years because his mum and dad told him to, he's not left-wing. He isn't. The average Labour voter is socially conservative. Normal people who are just thick enough to vote for Labour. Low-information voters. I'm not slagging them off. Normal people who outsource the deep dives in politics to the lying media. They're socially conservative, even if they vote Labour. When it comes down to it, if you're talking crime and punishment, immigration, throwing money at career welfare recipients like Mick Philpott, nobody agrees with that. The UK is about 80% right-wing, and hopefully, thanks to the unending failures of James, did you see him today? James Cleverly. That's the gods playing tricks on us, that. Calling a man who's as thick as whale spunk Cleverly. I love that. That's the most ironic name in Parliament, that. But did you see him in Kemi today? Ooh, only we can help the farmers. Shut up. If you read The Guardian, vote Conservative. If you don't, shut up and vote for somebody else. All right? Easy. Let's get into Trumpy Bear, shall we? Right then, unless you live under a rock, you heard Trumpy Bears in Davos, kicking ass and taking names. It was amazing. I'm not going to show you the old thing. It'd take forever. You can look it up. Just go on one of the socials, type in Trump in Davos. You'll see some fantastic speeches and him just ripping the piss out of all the people that deserve it. But this is my favourite 2 minutes, this. He absolutely tortures that slimy French toad, Mr. Macron. And he folds up faster than a damp deck chair. Watch this. Brilliant stuff.
But I actually sided with Emmanuel, who probably is in the room too. I actually like him. Hard to believe, isn't it? And I said, Emmanuel, you're going to have to lift the price of that pill to $20, maybe $30. Think of that. That means it's a doubling of prescription drugs. Might be a tripling, might be a quadrupling. It's not easy. No, Donald, I will not do that. I said, yes, you will, 100%. He said, no, you're asking me to double. I said, Emmanuel, you've been taking advantage of the United States for 30 years with prescription drugs. You really should do it, and you will do it. I have no doubt. In fact, I am 100% sure you're going to. No, I will not do it. So we're at $130. They're at 10. So they may have to go to 20 or 30. No more than that. I said, Emmanuel, you're going to be doubling or tripling? No. I said, here's the story, Emmanuel. The answer is you're going to do it. You're going to do it fast. And if you don't, I'm putting a 25% tariff on everything that you sell into the United States and a 100% tariff on your wines and champagnes. And that's about 10 times more than what I'm requesting. And you're going to do it. I don't want to go public with it, but you may make me do that. No, Donald, I will do it. I will do it. It took me, on average, 3 minutes a country saying the same thing. You will do it. They all said, no, I will not do it. You're asking me to double the cost of prescription. I said, that's right, because you've been screwing us for 30 years.
Right. Brilliant stuff. and exactly what I've been telling anyone who listens for the last 2 years. When you're in a country that hardly produces anything and doesn't have any money, and you sell all of your stuff and you depend on selling all of your stuff to a much larger, wealthier, more powerful country, you don't get to set the terms. This is why it's so frustrating what the British government and the slimeball, ratbag British politicians did with the whole Brexit thing. We had all the cards. We've got a population approaching 70 million, and I know we're pretty skint, but we are one of the tallest midgets in the room. We've got more money than Spain and Portugal and Italy. So we had a strong position, a strong hand, and we threw it all away because the Quislings wanted to do as bad a job as possible, so you'll beg to go back in the European Union. It's transparently obvious to anyone with two brain cells to rub together, but that's what happens. That's how it works. It's not rocket science. The strong command the weak. And that oily little French ratbag is in a position of weakness, and he'll do as he's told, all right? He also had a pop at Starmer, which is brilliant, slagging him off for his Chagos. Deal. As if we weren't just getting stitched up by corrupt lawyers. They're all on the payroll. That's the only reason they took the Chagos deal, so they can skim a little bit of cream off the top. Which takes us to the next good bit, which is in butchering them over the energy. Again, everything the European politician does is to the detriment of the European people. Every single one of them. The energy policy is completely crackers. You all know this. We could be buying and making our own energy. Instead, we outsource it to the Indians. And in some cases, they just buy off the Russians and then we buy off the Indians, tripling the amount of emissions because we're doing it in such a roundabout way, and then outsourcing emissions. Look at us, we're keeping our emissions low. Yeah, but China's and India's has doubled because you're outsourcing it to them. I mean, a child can see what's going on. But again, let's let the Orange Oracle tell us how it goes.
And electricity prices are 64% higher. The United Kingdom produces just 1/3 of the total energy from all sources that it did in 1999. Think of that, 1/3. And they're sitting on top of the North Sea, one of the greatest reserves anywhere in the world, but they don't use it. And that's one reason why their energy has reached catastrophically low levels with equally high prices. High prices, very low levels. Think of that, 1/3, and you're sitting on top of the North Sea. And they like to say, well, you know, that's depleted. It's not depleted. It's got 500 years. They haven't even found the oil. The North Sea is incredible. They don't let anybody drill. Environmentally, they don't let them drill. They make it impossible for the oil companies to go. They take 92% of the revenues.
Yeah. And that should make you extremely angry. It makes me very angry. Middlesbrough, my hometown, they could frack there. There's tons of shale gas, all sorts of resources there, and they don't do it because they want you to be poor. If they built the infrastructure in the northeast there, you'd have 20,000 jobs created overnight. Everyone in the borough would be driving around in a Porsche or a Bentley. And instead, they're all on the dole. They're all smackheads. And then 80% of the town's Somalians. They do it on purpose because fat, miserable, depressed pissheads with no job and no hope do as they're told, sit in the council houses and cry about it and say, oh, don't take my benefits off me. I'll vote for you if you don't take me benefits off me. That's what they want you to do. They want you to be fat, depressed and weak and pathetic and spineless because you'll do as you're told. That's why they outsource energy production to China and India, thereby increasing emissions. We're buying gas off the Americans. All of the European Union nations are buying gas off the Americans, and they could be getting it themselves. That increases emissions. Think about it. And how much is your electricity bill? I mean, honestly, I'm just curious. My electricity bill, we've got a 3-bedroom house. It's about $40 a month. What's that, 30 quid? What are you paying for electricity? You're getting ripped off on purpose by the Quislings that rule over you with an iron fist, do nothing about murderers and kiddie fiddlers, and then trap you in poverty on purpose because you'll be easier to control. In fact, I'll segue neatly into that because that's what I want to finish on. The Lagos ladyboy's been moaning about under 16s accessing social media. I'm sick of hearing about it. She's been banging this drum all week. And I want to ask you a simple question. If you're daft enough to think yourself conservative or right-wing and you think that's a good idea, I just want to ask you a simple question. Why do you think the government should be taking over parenting? Why do you think the state should be responsible for raising your children. Why don't you get off your fat ass, put down the Chicago Town Pizzas and the Carlsberg Special Brew and raise your own children instead of outsourcing it to the government? I can't believe this is getting purchased with conservative people. It's your job to do it. I know plenty of people whose kids aren't on social media or don't have mobile phones. The parents do it. They say, you're not having one, you little twat, go and wash the dishes. It's up to you to do that. These people who think this is some sort of conservative policy are completely brain dead. The government should have as little to do with your kids as possible. And as I've just mentioned regarding the diddlers, they're going harder in on this, banging that drum all week, daily. But they didn't bang the drum when at least 250,000 Puma trackies were torturing, diddling, and occasionally killing children. Actually torturing children didn't seem to get that much of a strong response, no. But they're all on board with telling you if they're allowed to get on social media or not. That's a bit strange to me, isn't it? It's a little bit strange. I'd think watching an 8-year-old get rattled from your panda car and then whistling a tune and driving off pretending like you didn't see anything because the Prime Minister, the androgynous android himself, signed a circular and sent it round to all the police forces telling them not to get involved because they rely on the Puma Trackie vote. I'd think that is a little bit more repellent when it comes to not doing your job for the kids than demanding that the state tells them what they're allowed to download. So anyone who's thick enough to think this is them caring about your children needs to give their heads a shake, because they didn't care about your children when they were getting fingered by foreign men or stabbed in the eye at dance classes or blew up at pop concerts. So if you think this is a conservative policy, I'm sorry to say, you're a f***ing idiot. All right? Let's call it there. I think I've summed up neatly. See you all tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in. Toodle pip. Cheers.